Hello, and thank you for joining me for the seventh data analysis bootcamp class. Okay, we're going to go into some really practical things of how to work with the data, how to manipulate the data, kind of massage the data to get into the format that we need to for our data analysis. Okay, so data wrangling, cleaning, and treating. Okay, but before we get started on this class, let's review the mnemonics from the last class. Okay, so in the last class, we talked about how the scatter plot is, although helpful at understanding the trend, it can be kind of hard to really understand how much data is supporting that given trend. Okay? And so kind of like seeing how many stars are there in like a little section of the sky. Well, it's really can't. It's very hard to count that many, right? It's very hard to tell, and so uh, kind of the same thing. We can't really tell how much data is in any given point in the scatter plot, and so it's a little bit less than useful sometimes. Although sometimes it can be a good insight as to what we want to inspect a little bit more. Okay. Uh, the regplot really kind of investigating the linear relationships in our data set here with our linear detective, and he going through this, he really is going, or the regplot is really going to help us detect the lines and really see that linear relationship between, do the regression and get that linear relationship kind of down. Okay. The KDE plot on a bivariate basis lets us see and really understand where the true density of the bivariate relationship is. And this is valuable when you have too much data. And because of its simplicity, you can very easily change the hue, change the category color or the coding by the category to highlight this, and you'll be able to inspect how much that bivariate relationship is affected by that category. Okay, and we talked about the joint plot, which really allows us to see the convergence of two variables and really get a sense of where those two are connecting and what is the relationship there. We get the x-axis and the y-axis each having the univariate plots, and that lets you really understand, even with a scatter plot, where the density of the relationship is. But we can also take this a step further and use something like the KDE or the hex plot in the joint middle area of the plot. And really something like the hex plot gets you, a really detailed amount of information of where that true density, where the weight that's maybe supporting the trends that you're seeing really actually are. Okay. We discussed the heat map is a really good plot when we put in the correlation matrix to really quickly identify where there's more activity in our city, in our heat map, in our data set, and really start to understand where we want to explore and go a little bit further. And one of the ways that we would do that is with the pairplot, which allows us to visualize many sides of our data set very quickly. Okay. And really let us know where we want to go from there. That my favorite is the pair grid based on the pair plot that allows us to plot the regression line with the residuals on the other side. Again, plotting every bivariate relationship and allowing us to really get a good sense of what is worth exploring a little bit further. Sometimes seeing the mirror image, the regression line looks like one pattern, but seeing the errors can kind of highlight different patterns, different relationships, and different ways to look, understanding that, and maybe where there could be something more going on in this relationship, okay, or more to this relationship. Okay, we talked about the rel plot and then the linear model plot that allow us to understand really our data in their own respective very, very well. So the linear lin or ren plot is for the understanding the relationships, right? So it allows a lot of detail of subsectioning by categories in the rows and by the columns and then by the hue in this type of plot, and really give you a sense of how these plots or how these relationships, these categories interplay in your data set. The linear model does a lot of the same things in some senses, and that allows us to subsection our data set by the rows and columns of different categories, and then into the hue argument. It allows us a little bit extra detail on the linear relationship of the data, and the rel plot looks at the relationships in the data. So they're kind of looking at the categories in a sense. So they can do lots of the same things, but they focus on slightly different things. And lastly, we talked about the importance of having or understanding your colors to assist in your data analysis. The divergent plot is great when we have positive and negative values, and the middle being a little bit more whited out or black, if you will, if you choose. And the idea here is it really lets us focus on what is positive, what is negative, where is worth exploring in a little bit more detail. Okay. The light plot is a good plot for when we have the one dimension, one magnitude of colors, and we go through there and really just highlighting the increasing or decreasing values of those. Okay, so let's get on to our class today.